Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are able to see the screen as well as you people are able to uh, hear my voice also. Okay, good. Thank you. So let's continue with our previous session. We were discussing about the differences between C, C++, and Java. In case I have here kept most of the object languages which are considered as object-oriented languages. In case of C language, there is one flavor of C language called as Objective-C, which is considered to be object-oriented C language. We have learned a general purpose C language in the very beginning, but there is one version of C language which is called as Objective C language, which also includes objects inside it, just like your C++. So here on the left hand side, I have kept various features of object-oriented programming languages, which you might have learned in C++ also. And I'm trying to compare them with regard to how it works in Java and other languages. You can see that encapsulation is present in all the languages. Even Java supports it. Inheritance, it's present in almost all the languages except the Ada, which was the first object-oriented language that was built. But later on, it was not adopted because there was no inheritance concept. Since there is no inheritance concept, there is no concept of multiple inheritance in Ada also. Whereas in C++ and Objective-C language, the multiple inheritance concept is there, which introduced an ambiguity to the user. But in Java language, there is no multiple inheritance, so there is no ambiguity or confusion in case of accessing of member variables and member functions. Polymorphism, it is there in all the languages. Binding, in case of C++, it is late binding as well as early binding. And in case of Java language, it is late binding. What is late binding and what is early binding? At the time of compilation itself, if I link the function call to its function definition, at the time of the compilation itself, I'm repeating, at the time of compilation itself, if I link the function call to the function definition which is to be executed, then it is called as binding, early binding. Okay, but at the time of execution, not at the time of compilation, at the time of execution, if I link the function call to the function to be executed, then that linking is called as late binding. Is it clear for everyone? In case of C++, Both late and early bindings are available. Late binding will work when you are having function overloading concept. Early binding will be there when there is no function overloading. There is a plain simple function call. When you are having a specific uh, function overloading used here, then late binding will help you. But in case of Java, even for simple functions, we don't call them as functions here, we call them as methods. There is no early binding, there is late binding. Okay. So in case of concurrency, can we access multiple programs at the same time? In case of C++, it's very poor. It's very poor. When it comes for ADA, it's almost impossible. You cannot have multiple programs running parallelly. But in case of Java, you will have a bunch of programs which will run parallelly. In case of garbage collection, this is a concept which has been introduced by mainly Java, but later on adapted in Objective-C. What is garbage collection is in C++ and C language, you are going to create objects of classes, right? So those objects are going to be saved inside some memory. That memory area in which the objects will be called stored is called as heap memory, HEAP. This section of memory, which is going to contain the objects that are being created in the programs, will keep on growing as we go on executing different programs. If I am executing 10 programs, whatever 10 programs objects are being created, suppose each is creating 5 objects, around 50 objects will be saved inside the heap memory. But suppose if we keep on growing the heap memory like that, will there be sufficient memory left in the RAM memory space to allocate some new programs to create the objects? No. So there should be some program in the background which should check whether an object is still being utilized or not. If it is still being utilized by some program, then it has to be kept in the memory, otherwise it has to be taken out of the memory. So the background running process which will verify whether the object is being used or not is called as garbage collection program. Is called as garbage collection program. So in case of C++, there is no garbage collection. That's why we used to have along with the constructor a concept called as destructor, through which we used to relieve the memory which was allocated for the objects. But in case of Java, we need not worry about the destructors. Just forget about it. Java itself has got its own internal garbage collector program which will work perfectly, and it will remove all the non-usable objects from the memory. So in case of ADA, it was not at all there. In case of object-oriented C, Objective-C language, we had that concept inherited from Java language. When it comes for genericity in the sense in C++ you used to have objects being created, right? But suppose you want to create an object of a generic data type, not of a specific data type. The data type can be mentioned as a dynamic purpose. At that time, you used a concept called as templates. In C++, you have used a concept called as templates, which was making you to create programs suitable for different data types. At the runtime, you will specify what is the data type to be used, and your program will get modeled into that particular data type. But in case of Java, that templates, since it was very difficult for the new beginners, I don't know how many of you are well aware of the templates concept. How many of you are aware of templates concept in C++? Just put it in the chat box. Are you aware of templates or not? Don't know. No. So here itself you can feel, though you have spent 1 year studying the C++, one complete semester, you are not aware what is the templates over there. So it was a problematic issue because of which you may not have concentrated on templates. But in case of Java, that problem itself has been taken out. It is not highly required here. It utilizes templates in a very different way. In case of C++, we used to have class libraries, like for example, IOStream header files. We call them as header files here. But in case of Java, it is still there, but we don't call them as header files here. We call them as packages. Okay. So these were few of the differences that are there between the C++, C, and Java language. So this is an important question. If you wish, you can utilize the previously given slide. This slide, you can mention what are not there in C Java language, which were there in C++, and or else you can mention these features and mention whether they are there as a comparative measure. Okay, Java supports encapsulation or not, whether C++ supports encapsulation or not. Basically, you may not even bother about these two languages, Objective-C and Ada. Just concentrate on what is the difference between C++, C, and Java language. Now, we are moving further ahead to look into our Java programs. Before we go ahead with our Java programs, I would like to introduce one of the client-side programs which have been introduced in Java language. Just because we have finished with the JavaScript, I want to just introduce it here. Now, what is this client-side scripting language is these are the programs which will be executed on the client machine. Client-side script programs are the programs which will be running on the client machines. They will not get executed on the server machine. So if you want a piece of program to be moved onto the client machine and get it executed there, rather than burdening the server for all the clients, then you have to use applets. Okay. Using applets, you can make your client machine to execute some certain program. To develop this applet, what you have to do is you have to create a Java file. Java file in the sense how you created a HTML file by saving the file name with an extension of .html. Same way, you will create one notepad file, save it with a particular file name with extension of .java. For example, here I have written hello.java. Okay, just forget about this at sun.com. I just wanted to show that it has been first introduced by Sun Microsystem. That's why I kept it. Now this hello.java, should it be created on the client machine or will it be created on the server machine? This is another question. As a developer, I cannot move on to the client machine and write the program there. I have to write the program on the server machine where I am developing the program. Ravi Kishore, is my voice not audible? Okay, thank you. So, as a developer, you will be developing the programs in a company sitting on a server. So, you will not be writing the program on the client machine. So, you will write your program on the server machine. Suppose, let us say, at Sun Microsystem server itself, you have written the program. Now, after compiling it, the program which you have written hello.java will get converted into another file called as hello.class. This .class file is the one which can be copied from one system to another and can be executed on multiple platforms. Okay, so when you compile your hello.java, it will get converted into hello.class. This will be the program file which is actually be able to be copied from one system to another system. Now, will you copy and paste through a pen drive or some means, CD or DVD, onto different clients? No. What you will do, you will create one HTML page, link your program to that HTML page so that anywhere from anywhere in the world, people can access that HTML page through internet and download your program which you have written on the server. Now that program which they have downloaded on their client machines through internet can be executed on the client machine itself. So the whole scenario is You as a developer is going to write a program on the server. This program will be compiled on the server machine, and you will link that particular program to a HTML document so that that HTML document can be downloaded over internet, and that program, once it is downloaded, can be executed on the client side machine also. Okay, but there are certain limitations from applets, keeping in perspective of security. The biggest problem is that applet doesn't allow any operating system interactions on the client side. So for example, you want to upload a file from your local desktop onto your server through applets. It's not possible. Applet doesn't allow Java applet program to access your internal hard disk or operating system resources, because that applet was downloaded from internet, right? So while coming from the internet or while getting developed at the company, if the company is a illicit company or a illegal company, they will try to create a virus through applets. That's why applet does not allow your app program to interact with the operating system resources. Okay, so due to this restriction, it was considered as the most secure way of passing a message or passing a program to the client machine, as well as it became a hindrance point for its further usage. It was not as highly accepted as that of other programs. That's why it is absolute now. It is not there in Java programming. Applets have been removed from Java concept. What are the applications of applets? Applications or importance. Whatever I have said just now, I have kept both the points here. So please go through them and try to understand them. So I'm not going for that applications slide. We'll move ahead for our Java program execution strategies. So how does Java becomes architecture neutral? How is it if I compile a program on one system machine, I am able to take that program onto multiple systems or different systems and execute them without any problem, though their architectures are different. How is it happening? The scenario is that you'll write a Java program called as Java source file. We call them as Java source file. It will be passed to a Java compiler. This compiler will try to convert that particular source file, which is written in plain English format. Java language is just similar to C and C++. It will be written in English language. It will take those English wordings into a and convert it into a form of intermediary code. This intermediary code language is capable to be understood by a component of our Java compiler called as Java runtime environment. Is capable to be understood by a component called as Java runtime environment. So what Java did is it created two things in the compiler. One is a part which will convert it into an intermediary code. It will take the source program, convert it into intermediary code, and this intermediary code will be understood another part of Java program compiler called as Java runtime environment. Now, for different architectures, for operating systems of Windows, for operating systems of Linux, for operating systems of Sun Solaris, Java has defined different sets of Java runtime environments, one for each operating system. They have defined it. So now what will happen is, though your program compiler is one single one, it is compiling it into an intermediary form. Now, based on the operating system, this intermediary code will be provided to a specific Java runtime environment. And that Java runtime environment will take that particular file, check whether that file is having any errors or not. If it is error free, it will try to execute that particular program line by line. Okay. So what is the whole scenario? The whole scenario is Java compiler is built up of two components. One is for a compilation purpose, one is for linking it to a specific runtime environment. This runtime environment, this blue colored part, is available for multiple operating systems. Based on your operating system, the runtime environment will work. Okay, will convert your dot class file, which has been compiled from your source file, into its corresponding runtime environment, operating system corresponding runtime environment. So this Java program, originally Java source program, is called as source program, and the one which has been converted by the compiler into intermediary port representation is called as bytecode program. Is called as bytecode program. This program code is understood by Java runtime environment. Okay, and will remain common for different multiple Java runtime environments. So this bytecode will be given for the class loader. It will check what about classes are required for the program to get executed. Based on those classes, it will load those classes and give it for Java interpreter. This is the Java whole, we can say it is the heart of your Java actually. What it does is it has got the interpreter which will check each and every line and it will try to execute that line. At the same time, once it has checked all the lines, for a fast compilation, it will go for a just-in-time compilation. It will quickly go through. For example, you are going through a book. You will go through one line after the other. Once you have understood the paragraph, you will have a quick overview of the paragraph once again. You will have a quick revision of the paragraph so that your concept is clear, your execution is clear. Same way, though here line by line compilation was done, line by line execution was done, on the whole, how that compilation is going to work will be understood by just in compiler. This just-in compiler and Java interpreter will work in coordination with runtime system. This is the component which will interact with the operating system. So here, this runtime system is completely written by Java developers and it has been written in such a way that no changes can be made into it by any other program. So this runtime system is so secure that it doesn't interact with any other programs, allowing it to be securely interacting with the operating systems. These three components are called as Java Virtual Machine. They are called as Java Virtual Machine. So Java Virtual Machine is the actual one which provides you with the security features. So you can clearly see this runtime environment is going to interact with the operating system. In other cases, what will happen is this compiler itself will interact with the operating system. So what will happen if you write a source code which is trying to access any of the files of the operating system, this compiler will grant the access to it. But in case of Java, it will first verify whether this runtime is going to be safely interacting with the environment or not, with the operating system or not. If it is safely interacting, it will allow the access. Otherwise, it will not allow the access. Okay. Same program, same concept I have explained using another diagram, which you can go through. So here comes how do you download the JDK and how do you install. Those who are having systems at their home, please go through it carefully. We'll go for the Java original website, which is Oracle nowadays. Earlier it used to be Sun Solaris, sunmicrosystems.com. Now it is Oracle. So go to Java installation. The website link has been posted here. Download that particular installation file and try to double click that JDK. The installation will start. The installation process is very simple. I'm not going to explain it in detail, but one thing you need to do over here after installation is complete is you have to create a path variable. So what is path variable and how to create it, I will explain within a short while. So here you will not be able to understand it. I have kept a diagrammatic overview of it. So what you need to do is after installation steps are over, you need to start your all programs. You have to go for the computer's start menu, all programs, which is the first program part, first screen. In that, you have to right click on your computer, go for properties. You have to right click on your computer and go for properties. Once you have opened the properties tab, you will get this window. You will get this particular window wherein you will have a setting called as advanced system settings listed there on the control panel. Okay, click on advanced system settings. You will get a pop-up of this nature which has been pointed with the fourth symbol. Okay, you will get this particular pop-up. Now in this pop-up, go for advanced tab. Go for advanced tab. You will find these buttons available there. Click on environmental variables button. You'll get a pop-up of this nature. Okay. Now here there will be two sets of values to be edited. First one is regarding the user variables for administrators. If you make any changes here, only that user account through which you have logged in your system will get impacted. If you are the only person who is going to use the system and there is no other account available on your system, there is no other person going to use your system with another login name, then you can happily do or make a change here. But still, we prefer to follow the second block because if you make any changes in these variables, it will impact on the whole system, not just one user or two users. So what you need to do is you need to make two changes here in this block. The first change is going to be made to a pre-existing variable called as path, P-A-T-H. This is a pre-existing variable. So you need to select that variable, click on edit. You have to click on edit and you have to mention what is the exact path of your Java program where it has been installed. Usually programs will get installed in your C drive, right? C programming files directory. Same thing where you have installed your Java program JDK, you have to list it over here and click on OK button. Click on OK of this one, click on OK of this one, click on OK of this computer control panel, close this one and restart your system. This is the entire step of it. I hope it is little clear, but once we do it practically, it will be more clear for you people. So that was how to install our application. We have seen when you come over here physically, that is on Monday, you will be able to see how exactly that installations will look like. So now I want to just introduce you to Java program, simple Java program. So let's see how it looks like. I'll keep the whole program in front of you. Print hello world to the user. I have to write this particular block of code. What is this block of code? Actually, in C language, if I have to write similar a block of code, what I have to write? Void main, println, hello world in double quotes, right? That's all a programming C language will look like, but in Java it is little more lengthier. What we'll write is we'll create a class. In Java, nothing works unless and until you are creating a class and an object. Java is completely object-oriented language. It is not partial object-oriented language like your C++. In C++, you will not keep void main inside class. Inside void main, you can create some variables, you can access those variables and so forth. But in case of Java, for each and everything, you have to create a class. And don't get worried about class. It's very simple. It's very simple. The syntax of class is you have to write a class keyword and give a name to that particular class, whatever name you want to write. Then within the opening and the closing brace of the class definition, you have to define some functions and variables inside it. Is it fine? So you have to write a class keyword, name of the class. So for example, I am using a name as hello. And within the opening and closing brace of the class, I am writing one function over here. What is that function which should be there damn surely for your program to get executed? Main function. So I'm writing main, I'm defining it as a function, void main, but here two more things will get attached. One is static, another is public. I'll come back to this static and public later on, but first let us try to understand what is this which we have written in within the parenthesis. In case of C and C++, mostly we have not passed any parameters to the main function, but we have written the parenthesis, right? Functions can accept the parameters also, right? In case of main, what parameters can we pass and to whom are we passing? Usually from main we'll make a call to other functions. So from main we'll pass the parameters to other functions, right? But here, to whom are we going to pass these arguments? And from where are they going to be called in? So first question is, who is making a call to main function? Other functions are being called from main, right? Then who is going to make a call to main function? It's the compiler. Compiler makes a call to main function to start the execution of our program. This is the simple part. Okay. So now the compiler will tell me at the time of compilation, was there any environmental variables available or not? Whether there were some arguments passed at the time of compilation, commands input or not. Those parameters which were passed at the time of compilation to be used within our program will be stored inside a specialized array called as arguments array. Will be stored in a specialized array called as arguments array. And this arguments array is of type string. Okay. I hope this part is clear now. Let us come back for this part. Now, in C++, if you remember, if you have created one class, unless you create an object of the class, can you use that class? Yes or no? Think for a while and reply back. I'm repeating the question again. In C++, suppose you have a class. Unless you create an object of the class, can you use that particular class? Can you access any of the member variables and member functions of that class? Say yes. So you cannot access them, right? Now tell me, in void main you created objects of the class, and then using the objects you were able to access the member variables and member functions, isn't it? In C++, yes or no? Correct. Now, okay, fine. Now, main function was the one which was creating the objects for you, and main function is the one which will be called by the compiler to start the execution of your program. Once your program execution starts, objects will get created, right? Now my question is, in case of Java, the main function itself is in a class. So can Java compiler, access the main function without creating an object of the class? Where have we created the object of the hello class? We have not created it. Can the Java compiler access this main function? It can't, right? It cannot. So, but we have our starting point of our program execution itself as main, isn't it? So, to avoid this situation, what Java people have done is they have created a keyword called as static. And if a function is having a keyword static written before the function name, then this function can be called by the Java compiler even without creating an object of it. Okay? This function can be called by the Java compiler even without creating an object of the class into which that function belongs. Is it clear for everyone now? Why we are writing static? This static keyword will help the Java compiler to access this function even without creating an object of the hello class. Now, the second thing, public. If I don't keep main function as public, can it be accessed outside of the class? Because Java compiler is a separate thing and my class is a separate block of code. Can Java compiler access function, my function main, if it is private? No. So damn surely it should be public in nature. That's why we write public static void main for all the main functions. So in Java program, the main function will be written as public static void main. Okay. Now to print hello world on the black screen, which we call as command prompt, we have got a function called as println, which is present in an object called as out, which is an object of a class called as system. So we'll write system.out.println. Okay, system.out.println. This is a just like println function. This is also a function predefined in Java language, and we'll pass whatever message is to be written in double quotes, and we'll close that particular function with a semicolon. So to compile this particular program, what I have to write is, wherever I have saved this program, I have to go for that particular directory in my command prompt, and I have to write a keyword called as Java C. Java C. This is for Java compiler. Space. You will save this program, right? How will you save it? You don't have many options. You have to use the same class name which is containing the main function as the file name. You have to keep the file name as hello itself. Okay. Why? Because this hello is a class name which is containing the main function. This class will be called as main class. So whatever is the name of the main class, you have to store your program with the same file name. That's why you are able to see hello over here. And the extension that we have to use is hello.java. So once it is compiled, program has been checked thoroughly for the errors. To execute the code, you have to write Java space hello, name of the class. You will not write hello.java.hello.java. You will simply say Java hello space hello, and it will execute that program and give the result back to us and display the result somewhere in the command prompt like this. The first program is clear for everyone. Within 1 minute or 2 minutes, our class will get finished off. Is there any doubt in this particular program? Thank you, Ravi Keshav. Is it clear for everyone? Okay, thank you. We'll close the class now. We should save the file as .java. Yes. Keep the main class file name with extension of .java. Just like how you have your HTML files